Hello, my friend. Welcome back to Simple Spoken English. I'm Jack. And today, I want to tell you something very honestly. If you forget English words after one day, if you learn 10 words today and tomorrow you remember only 2, if you open your notebook and say, Jack, I know I've seen this word before, but why can't I remember it? Then please listen carefully, because this is exactly how I felt many years ago. And honestly, I thought something was wrong with me. I thought maybe I had a bad memory. Maybe I was too old. Maybe English wasn't for me. Maybe some people are born with good brains, and I wasn't one of them. But one day, I discovered something that changed everything. The problem wasn't my memory. The problem was the way I was learning. And maybe, just maybe, you're making the same mistake. Let me tell you a story. A few years ago, I met a student named Ethan. Ethan loved English. Every day he watched YouTube videos. Every day he wrote new vocabulary in a notebook. Beautiful notebook. Thousands of words. Perfect handwriting. But every week he had the same problem. He forgot almost everything. One day he became frustrated. He looked at me and said, Jack, I'm tired. I know hundreds of words, but when I speak, my mind becomes blank. I feel stupid. Maybe you felt that too. Maybe during a conversation. Maybe during an exam. Maybe while watching a movie. You know you've learned the word before, but suddenly, nothing. It's gone. And do you know what I told Ethan? I said, Ethan, your brain isn't broken. Your brain is actually doing exactly what it was designed to do. He looked confused, and honestly, I understand, because most people believe memory works like a camera. See a word once. Remember it forever. But your brain doesn't work that way. Your brain is more like a bodyguard. It asks one question. Is this important? And if the answer is no, it throws the information away. Why? Because your brain wants to save energy. Think about it. Can you remember what you ate 57 days ago? Probably not. Can you remember every person you saw last month? Probably not. But can you remember your first love? Can you remember an embarrassing moment? Can you remember your favorite song? Of course. Because emotions create memory. Stories create memory. Experiences create memory. Not lists, not dictionaries, not endless notebooks. And this explains why children learn language so naturally. Children don't sit with vocabulary books. They don't memorize. They experience. They hear. They laugh. they cry, they play. And because emotions are involved, words become memories. That's why I stopped learning words and started living words. Let me show you. Suppose today you learn the word charge. Most people do this. Charge, charge, charge. They repeat it 20 times, and tomorrow, gone, finished, forgotten. But I want you to do something different. Close your eyes. Imagine this. You're outside. Your phone battery is only 2%. Your friend is waiting. You need Google Maps. And suddenly, your phone dies. Panic. You enter a cafe and ask, "Excuse me, can I charge my phone here?" Now say it with me. "Excuse me, can I charge my phone here?" Good. Now imagine another situation. Your mother calls. You can't answer. Why? Because your phone wasn't charged. Now say, "Sorry, Mom, my phone wasn't charged." Can you feel it? Suddenly the word charge isn't just a word anymore. It's a memory. It's a situation. It's your life. And that's exactly how your brain wants to learn. Not vocabulary. Experiences. And here's something interesting. Psychologists discovered that our brains remember stories up to 20 times better than isolated facts. 20 times. That's crazy. Which means if you're learning words alone, you're making life harder. But if you learn words inside stories, inside emotions, inside experiences, your memory becomes powerful. And before I teach you my favorite technique that helped me remember words forever, if you're enjoying this lesson, subscribe to Simple Spoken English. Because every week, I create long audio stories and English lessons that help you think, speak, and live in English naturally. And trust me, my friend, the next technique completely changed Ethan's life. And maybe it will change yours too. And before we continue, I want you to remember Ethan, the young man who thought he had a bad memory, the young man who was ready to give up on English. Because honestly, Ethan wasn't lazy. He wasn't stupid. He wasn't too old. He was simply learning in a way that his brain hated. And maybe that's exactly what's happening to you. So one day I gave Ethan a challenge. I said, "Ethan, today don't learn 10 words. Learn only 1. He looked disappointed. "Only 1? Jack, that's too little." I smiled and said, "Trust me. The problem isn't the number of words. The problem is that you're trying to meet words instead of making friends with them." And then I taught him something that changed everything. Use it or lose it. Your brain is very practical. It doesn't care how much effort you put into learning. It only cares about one thing. Do I need this information or not? That's it. Imagine buying gym equipment and never using it. Eventually, dust covers everything. Your muscles become weaker. Your body says, "We don't need this." Your brain does exactly the same thing. When you learn a word and never use it, your brain says, "Apparently this isn't important." And then, delete, gone, forgotten. But something amazing happens when you use the word quickly. Suddenly your brain says, "Oh, this word matters. Let's save it." So I taught Ethan a very simple rule. 24 hours. Whenever he learned a new word, he had 24 hours to use it. Not next week, not someday, today, immediately. The first word he learned was borrow, and instead of writing it 10 times in a notebook, I told him, live with the word. So Ethan texted his friend, "Can I borrow your headphones tomorrow?" Later he asked his brother, "Can I borrow your charger?" And at night, while thinking in English, he said to himself, "I borrowed a book from the library last month. 3 real situations, 3 memories, 3 experiences." And guess what? 2 weeks later, he still remembered the word perfectly. Not because he had memorized it, because he had lived it. And then something funny happened. Ethan became excited, like a child discovering a new game. He called me and said, "Jack, this actually works." And I laughed, because I knew what was happening. His brain wasn't learning vocabulary anymore. It was collecting experiences. And then I taught him another secret, one that psychologists love. Make words personal, because your brain remembers emotions more than information. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt nervous before an exam, before speaking English, before meeting someone special? Of course you have. Everybody has. Now imagine learning the word nervous. Most people memorize nervous, worried, finished, and tomorrow, gone. But I told Ethan, no. Find your story. So he remembered his first job interview. His hands were shaking. His heart was beating fast. He couldn't sleep the night before. And then he created a sentence. I felt nervous before my first interview. Suddenly, the word became emotional, and emotional words stay longer. Then he remembered his first English conversation with a stranger. Again, nervous. Again, emotion. Again, memory. And slowly he realized something incredible. He wasn't remembering words. He was remembering moments. And that's exactly how native speakers learn. They don't memorize. They connect. They experience. They feel. Let me give you another example. The word lonely. Many people simply memorize. Lonely means sad because you are alone. Sounds easy. But your brain forgets definitions. It remembers feelings. Maybe you moved to another city. Maybe you stayed in a hostel. Maybe you spent your birthday alone. Maybe you missed your family. And during those moments, you felt lonely. Now say this with me. I felt lonely when I moved to a new city. Can you feel it? That's your memory. And when the word becomes your story, it becomes unforgettable. Because here's something most people never realize. Vocabulary isn't about English. Vocabulary is about life. Every word represents an experience, a memory, an emotion. And the stronger the emotion, the stronger the memory. But then Ethan asked me something interesting. Jack, what about words that have no emotion? What about simple words? And I smiled. Because that's where the next secret begins. Visualization. Turning words into movies. And honestly, this technique changed my own English forever. And trust me, my friend, what I'm about to show you next is probably the most powerful memory technique I have ever discovered. But first, if these lessons are helping you, subscribe to Simple Spoken English, because every week we don't just study English. We live English. And in the next part, I will teach you the visualization technique, story grouping, and the secret that helped Ethan remember thousands of words without memorizing lists. And honestly, after that, you'll never learn vocabulary the same way again. And I hope you're still thinking about Ethan. Because something amazing started happening to him. For the first time in his life, English words were staying in his mind. Not for one day, not for 1 week, but for months. And honestly, he couldn't believe it. One evening, while we were having coffee together, Ethan looked at me and asked, Jack, how do children remember words so easily? They don't have notebooks. They don't memorize vocabulary lists. But somehow they remember thousands of words. I smiled and said, because children don't learn words. They experience them. And that's when I taught Ethan my favorite technique. Visualization, turning words into movies. Because your brain loves pictures, more than definitions, more than translations, more than grammar. Think about it. You probably can't remember what you ate 37 days ago, but you can remember your first day at school. You can remember your first bicycle. You can remember an embarrassing moment from years ago. Why? Because memories are pictures, not dictionaries. And that's exactly how vocabulary works. Let me show you. The word is climb. Most people do this. Climb. Climb. Climb means go up, finished. Tomorrow, forgotten. But I told Ethan, close your eyes. Imagine a mountain. Imagine you're wearing hiking shoes. Your backpack is heavy. The air is cold. Your legs are tired. But you keep going. And finally you reach the top. Then I asked him, "What are you doing?" And he smiled. "I'm climbing." Exactly. Now the word isn't a word anymore. It's a movie. And your brain never forgets movies. Let's try another word. Messy. Don't memorize. See it. Imagine your bedroom. Clothes everywhere. Books on the floor. A cup on your desk. Your mother walks inside and says, "What happened here?" You laugh and say, "My room is messy." Can you see it? Good. Because your brain just created a memory, and memories stay. Definitions disappear. Movies stay. And then I taught Ethan another secret. Don't learn random words. Learn words in groups, because your brain hates chaos. But it loves